Okay, so I think last time we did this exercise, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and okay, so I think the main point was that when cloud droplets are smaller, they have higher optical depth, and if they have higher optical depth, it means they scatter more radiation to the space. So that is what the so that is something known as an indirect aerosol effect. So aerosol can scatter back the radiation, but when they modify the cloud and then cloud scatter back the radiation, it is called indirect aerosol effect. And why it is there, that is what this example shows us. And we come to the point, uh, optical depth. I mean, what is optical depth? We also discussed last time what is the difference between optical thickness and optical depth, and then we derived the equation for the cloud optical depth. Okay, and that equation was this equation. And why we could remove the q, because q, as the particle size is large compared to the wavelength, uh, q tends to the 2. So we can substitute the q equal to 2 into this equation, and that's why we could get this equation. So okay, and then I think one more task I asked you was to find out the radiative transfer equation into the uh, so this is the equation of the plane parallel atmosphere. How do you know that this equation is plane parallel atmosphere? I mean, what is that in this equation that tells you that this is the equation for the plane parallel atmosphere? It's not just any general equation.
Sir, here the term mu, it itself indicates that it is a plane parallel because it is comes when it is a homogeneous in
Very
x
good
and y.
answer. Very good answer. Because unless if we didn't make the plane parallel atmosphere, then there was no point of inserting this mu everywhere. And this mu will not come into the multiplication. Here we will have not the optical depth, but the optical thickness instead of optical depth. So we use optical depth, and then we assume the plane parallel atmosphere, so we could put the mu here. And so this mu tells that this is the equation for the plane parallel atmosphere. And if you solve this equation for downward upward intensity and downward intensity, this is the equation you should have got. How many of you tried to solve this equation? Did you get any of you tried actually? No.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did you
Yes,
get
sir.
this kind of equation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is the difference in this equation, downward intensity? So what we have assumed is that intensity at the Earth's surface is I0. Okay, and then this is the so there are, if you look at this equation, on the right hand side there are two terms. One is this term and another is this term. Okay, and in the beginning we assume that sorry, I'm making mistake. So in beginning, so this is the yeah. So this term is says that if there was some intensity at top of the atmosphere, and if it is reaching down to the Earth's surface, it will be attenuated by this much amount. Okay, so this is basically the statement of the Beer-Lambert law. So what is this equation then tells us? So let us say for that temperature there is some emissions from the atmosphere. So this equation says that at every altitude there is an emission happening, and then in subsequently in the below altitude, below that height, there is an absorption is happening. Okay, or loss is happening, extinction is happening. So this is like a combination of emissions from the atmospheric column and then again absorption. What you will notice is that in this equation you don't have the mu term outside, which we had here. Okay, to account for this factor. Why it is not there? Because if there is a absorption happening so if there is a slant path and if the absorption is happening, what will happen, that absorption will be more. Instead, if there was an absorption, if that radiation was traveling just vertically downward directions, and then compared to that, if the radiation is traveling at a slant angle, there is a more absorption, but there is also a more emissions because there is more atmospheric molecules are available to do the emissions. So that's why we would have expected one mu term here, but that's not there. If this was the so if you do the plane parallel atmospheric solution, then only you get this kind of an equation. Otherwise, you will have one mu term into or cos theta term into this equation. Okay. So in this, you can do many simplifications. For example, suppose you had a radiation that is only the long wave radiation, for example. Okay, let's say you are interested into the wavelength that is more than 10 micrometer or something. You have very little contribution from the sun. So this term you can take as 0. You will have only this term. Okay, so if you are if you have long wave radiations and if you are looking at downward intensity, you will find an radiative transfer equation that will be having this term will be missing. Why? Because you don't need this term. You can almost everything you okay. So you have now we started with how the radiation is produced. There should be some mechanism through which the radiation is produced, and that we understood in terms of the black body radiation. Okay, then how the radiation is lost. So it can be lost by absorption or scattering. Okay, so far we have talked about the absorption. We are not talking about the scattering. Okay, and then the radiative transfer equation we have derived, we are implicitly assuming that there is no scattering happening here. Okay, otherwise this equation will be little bit different. Okay, so now the next task is to understand the scattering. So we have to understand emissions, we have understood the absorption, and now we will try to understand the scattering.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir, in previous slide, sir, when we are considering J factor, sir, it is not a combination of absorption and scattering and all loss. So, sir, that at that point we have considered scattering, no?
We have really not considered, even though I will, instead of, I could have written the B here, okay? I mean, if you wait like one more lectures, you will see that J will look little bit different than what it is looking here. Of course, right now, the reason to put the J is that to give a hint that maybe there is more than the B. That is what I wanted to do that. Okay, or that Leo also is used as symbol J. Okay, but, when we have derived these things, we have not really. When we have derived these solutions, we have really not given a thought to the how the scattering might be, how to account for the scattering part. Okay, for example, this term is actually only accounting only for the absorption and the emissions. I mean, black body radiation emissions and black body radiation absorptions, but it's not really counting. I mean, if you would consider the scattering, this term will look different.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so one of the scattering that we are familiar is an Rayleigh scattering, and so let us understood why the scattering happens first place. Okay, so we all know that electromagnetic radiations or the light is in electromagnetic radiations or electromagnetic waves, and in that wave we have oscillating electric field and oscillating magnetic field perpendicular to each other. Okay, and then it travels into the space. We also, from the same kind of same mechanical view, we have also had for the absorption, that why absorption is happening. So when this radiation close to the say some molecule that is a polarized molecule, that molecule tries to reorient according to the field, that is electric field produced by this wave in the neighborhood of that molecule, and that is why that energy is absorbed. But suppose that molecule is not polarized molecule, but molecule has a kind of an electron cloud. Okay, what will happen when this wave is in the okay? Let us say there is a molecule like this. Okay, and wave is close to it. So what will happen? Suppose there is a loose electron there, or there is an electron cloud, and it can be like a metal, it can be molecules, it can be like ionosphere. Let's say that you have a kind of loose electrons available that can actually respond to the electric field. Okay, so what will happen? Let us say at one particular moment you have electric field all pointing upward direction. What will happen? The electron will be pushed downward. Okay, so there will be like a dipole moment induced into the molecule or whatever that object it is. Okay, so there will be like in opposite direction there will be a dipole moment. Okay, and how do we give this dipole moment? So dipole moment is given by an equation E0 equal to alpha into E0. Okay, where alpha is called polarizability factor. Okay, so what will happen after some time? Of course, wave is the fact that this is a wave, this field will not be constant. After sometimes this field will change from upside toward the downside, and then dipole moment also has to be changed according to, it will adjust according to the wave, according to the external electric field. So as the wave passes through this dipole moment will oscillate, and if it is oscillating, we know that oscillating dipole produces the electric field. So you can think like this: there is a radiation coming, it's getting absorbed, and then getting re-emitted, okay, in different directions. So scattering is basically a process in which you have a radiation coming in one direction, and then it is getting scattered into another directions. We are not talking about change in energy, but if you are talking about the Raman scattering, the change in energy is also happening. But right now we are assuming that there is no change into the energy of the electromagnetic that scattered radiation. Okay, so you have the, let's say if you had a 500 nanometer wavelength incident, scattered radiation will also be 500 nanometer. But the way you understand is that you can think that there is a radiation or photon is falling into there, and there is an is getting directed to the different directions. Or you can think is photon is falling into it, it is getting absorbed into it, and then new photon is produced and sent into the different direction. Whatever way, what we will use is the Maxwell's equations, and from the Maxwell equations this terms follows. Okay, so let us say you had this kind of so let us say you have an electric field in this direction, your wave is traveling in this direction, and you have this say radiation is scattered into this direction. Okay, so this radiation, as the wave travels, this radiation, this dipole will change, and it will change according to the frequency of the incident radiation. So let us so that will be given by this equation. Okay, E equal to P0. If you recall, this is the same equation of the same as the equation of the electromagnetic wave, except that E0 is replaced by the P0. Okay, and what we know is that whatever the scattered radiation is there, let us say this distance is r, it will be proportional to the inverse of the distance, so it will be 1 upon r, and then it will be proportional to the acceleration of the dipole. So acceleration of the dipole is given by here del square p by del t square, and it will also depend on to the angle. Okay, so let us say this is an angle gamma. So electric field at this distance, because of the scattered radiation, is given by this equation. Okay, c is the velocity of the light, r is a distance from the dipole, this is an acceleration of the dipole, and this is an angle with respect to electric field of the incident radiation. So if the electric field is this direction, this is the direction of the your scattered radiation, then this is the angle that matters for the magnitude. Now what we know about solar radiation is what we can do in this equation is that we can substitute value of P in this equation from this equation. Then we will get the equation of the E in terms of the incident radiation. So now E0 is an incident radiation. We have this equation. Now you should remember that this K is not same K. K we have been using for extinction coefficient or cross section. Right now this K is not the extinction cross section or the extinction coefficient, it is the value of wave number. So what is the wave number? The wave number is 2 pi upon lambda. Okay, of course, alpha is a polarizability and sine gamma is an angle between the E0 and E. Okay. Now, what we can assume is that if there is a solar radiation, we know that solar radiation is an unpolarized light. So you have electric field in equal amount of the electric field in all the directions. Okay, so if you have an so you can take like two perpendicular field, one in this direction, let us say, and another is in this direction. Okay. So what we can do is that instead of writing E like this, we can write E in terms of the this directions and E perpendicular. So perpendicular to the your screen. Okay, in this direction. So with respect to this electric field, your angle will be this one. With respect to this vertical direction, your angle will be this one. And if you notice that if you are taking this, so you have choice. You can put a field such that it is always perpendicular to this direction. One of the field is always perpendicular to this direction, and one of this into the same plane. So in this case, this gamma one will be always 90 degree. Okay. So I have written this equation separately for this component and this component of polarization, and then we can use the gamma one is always pi by 2, whereas this one is, so let us say this is your direction of incident, and then this direction let us call as a capital theta, then your gamma 2 will be pi by 2 minus theta. So all now you have to worry about is that your incident with scattering with respect to your incident direction. Okay. And if you substitute this value, you will get, obviously this will become 1, this will become cos theta. So you can write this equation into the matrix form. Okay. Now our job, so why we want to do this, what is our objective to when we say that we want to understand scattering? So our objective is to find out radiation scattering, so properties of the scattered radiation. So we want to find out if your incident radiation is in this direction, what is the direction it will be scattered. Okay, and what will be the magnitude of that scattered radiation, what will be the intensity of the scattered radiation, and so on. Okay, so we know that intensity is proportional to the mode of E square. So mode of E square, when it is when it involves the imaginary number, you know, you have to multiply by adjoint of the E. Okay, so E into adjoint of the E. So if you do these things, this term will become cancel. This term will cancel out. Okay, and what you will be left with? So your IR component is so let's say you are looking at the scattered radiations. Then in the scattered radiations, your perpendicular component is 1. So this is, let us call, perpendicular to the plane, and this is like a in the vertical direction. Then this is the one component, this is another component. Okay, and this does not involve any dependence onto the angle, whereas this involves the dependence onto the angle. Okay. Now, one more thing about we know is that solar radiation is that it is unpolarized. It means IR0 and IR0L. And total radiation, that will be the sum of all the components. So IR plus IL. And we all know that I0R and I0L for solar radiation is same. Okay. So we can write, instead of I0R, we can write I0 by 2. Okay. Then we get the equation for the intensity, I equal to I0 upon R square into alpha square, 2 pi upon lambda power 4, 1 plus cos square theta upon 2. So this is an equation of the intensity of the scattered radiation. Okay. Now, when it comes to a scattering, you can also think, so there are two things involved. Okay. One is that magnitude. Okay. What is the magnitude of the scattered radiation, and what direction it is emitted, what direction it is going. Okay. And what you notice here is that, so let us say this is your incident directions, this is your scatterer, and if you are looking into these directions, how much radiation is scattered in this direction. Suppose radiation is scattered in these directions, then it has some magnitude. if the radiation is scattered in this direction, then it is some magnitude. If radiation is scattered, say, perpendicular to the screen, then it has some magnitude. So magnitude is different when it's scattered. So the magnitude depends on the in which direction it is scattered. Or you can think this as that which direction probability of the scattering is more. So you put say 1 million 1 million photons onto these things. All the photons will be scattered into the different directions. Okay. You can think this as a probability, that what is the probability of getting radiation getting scattered in these directions, or radiation getting scattered into backward directions, or radiation getting scattered toward the perpendicular direction to the screen, and so on. Okay. So if you think that way, what you can do is that you can have something called phase function. Okay. So you can write an equation such that there is a part of the equation that describes this, the intensity is scattered, so is dependent on to the angle of the scattering. Okay. And part that will only describe the magnitude. Okay. So if you think this as a probability distribution, that let us say that what is the probability distribution in different angles, what you want to have is that probability, your probability function such that when you integrate over all the angles, it should be 1. In that case, you can actually have another part that can entirely give you the magnitude. It will make sense. So there is an so let us call that as a phase function. Okay. So phase function basically describes the probability probability of the scattering in different directions. Okay. And if you integrate phase function divided by 4 pi over all the angles, sorry, you should get 1. So this is by definition. So why it is 1? Because this is how we have defined the phase function. So instead of, so we have the equation of the scattering in this form, but we want to write the equation in terms of the phase function. Then we have to have kind of a constant such that phase function. So when it multiplies the phase function, it will be so all that term will become 1. So your phase function should be always 1. And if you want to remove this term, you want to convert this into the phase function, you have to multiply this term such that when you do an integration, that it will become the 1. So if we try to find a phase function for this what is called Rayleigh scattering, what will be the equation? Sorry, I don't mean to this. Okay, so if you find a term for the phase function for the Rayleigh, you will get this term. Okay. I hope you got the point. So we have the equation of this form. Instead of 1 plus cos square theta upon 2, I know that this term actually describes the angular dependence of the radiation, angular dependence of the scattering. Okay, so I want to replace this term with p theta. Then I have to have this term such that when I integrate, so I should incorporate this term into p theta such that when I integrate, it should become 1. And if I want to do this integration, then I have to add some extra constant, so that when I substitute again p theta into this equation, I should get original equation back. Okay. So if I have to do for these things, I will get a phase function which will look like these things. Okay, 3 upon 4 1 plus cos square theta. Okay, and if I write the equation of I, which I saw in earlier slide, in terms of the p theta, the whole equation will look like this is. Now we have derived this equation for the Rayleigh scattering, but this equation is valid for all the types of scattering. Okay. Or in other words, when we say different types of scattering, you may be hearing a lot about Mie scattering, for example. Difference between the Rayleigh scattering and Mie scattering is only the phase function. I mean, all the different types of scattering, they will have a difference only in phase function. That is what means when I say that this is a general equation of the scattering. Okay, and for the Rayleigh scattering, we know that this function will look like this one. But for other type of scattering, this function will be somewhat different. Okay. What we can find from this equation is that, so we know that this integration of p theta upon 4 pi is 1. So remaining terms, if I find, so I0 is like an incident radiation intensity. I can do an integration and find out the flux, and I do an integration on both the side. I kind of find out the flux, and if I divide the incident flux by the scattered flux, what I get is a scattering cross section. Okay, if I do these things, my scattering cross section will be basically this term. Okay, except for this r square. So this is alpha square 128 pi power 4 pi power 5 3 lambda power 4. So this is an scattering equation of the scattering cross section for the Rayleigh. Or for the, when you are talking about visible wavelength, air molecules causes the Rayleigh scattering. What you notice is that lambda power 4. So scattering cross section, if you have a smaller wavelength or if your wavelength changes, your scattering cross section changes by the 1 upon lambda power 4. Okay. And this equation, along with this equation, actually explains all the whether it's a blue sky, white clouds, why the clouds are white, why the skies are blue, and many interesting phenomena. Okay. Okay. What more? So what is this? So now this equation lambda we can know these are constant. Now there is an alpha is there, which is polarizability, and that is actually given from the scattering, refractive index of the material. So M is the refractive index of the material. Of course, this equation we have derived for the air molecules, but this is again valid for the like other mediums also. Let's say you wanted to study the scattering by say cloud, or scattering by the particles, or scattering by the water, so you can still use the same equation. Okay, and in this equation, M is the refractive index. Now, in case of the air molecules, absorption is very, very small, particularly in visible wavelength, compared to the scattering. So you can actually ignore the imaginary part. Now you may be knowing that refractive index is a two part. One is real part, one is imaginary part. And real part describes the scattering property, whereas an imaginary part describes the absorption property of the molecules. So you can ignore the absorption as far as you are interested in calculating the scattering, and you can find out the alpha. And once you have alpha, you can have a sigma s. Okay. But before we go further, okay. So then value of the scattering. So what is the refractive real part of the refractive index? It is a difference into the velocity of the light into that medium with respect to the vacuum. Okay, and we know that air also has a very, very negligible scattering. So MR, so real part of the refractive index is very close to 1. So if you do a Taylor series expansion and so on, and ignore the imaginary part, what you can do is that you can write alpha approximately this equation. Okay. Before we go into the exercise, I wanted to show you this video. I think you all might be familiar with the name Walter Lewis. If you are physics students, it will be very surprising that you have not heard this video. I will send you this video link into the chat. I don't know how it will look into your screen. So what I want you to do is that look at this video at 25th minute onward. Okay, that is the part describe the Rayleigh scattering. I mean, that is the part which actually describes the scattering experiment, which I want to tell. I mean, I wanted to do it myself and show it to you, but I think it is this available. And of course, this guy, I think you all might be very familiar. I mean, I will be very surprised if you have not heard the name of Walter Lewis. So let me just okay. Just give me 2 seconds. I will just do. So I have shared the link into the chat box. You can you click onto this link. It will start the video at 35 seconds onward. But I suggest whenever you get a time, you should see full video. Okay, and I will also play this video here on my slide. If you are finding it low resolution issue or something, I suggest that you directly view this video and come back to the presentation after say, I think it's only 5 minutes demonstration. Are you able to see the video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so I will just play it here.
Sir, it is not audible.
Pardon?
Sir, it is visible but not audible.
It's not audible. Okay, so let me see what I can do. Okay, let me different way. Okay.
Today, the reason why cigarette smoke can be blue if the smoke
It's running very slow in my computer. Are you able to?
particles are very small.
No, sir, the voice is cracking.
What कट हो रहा है.
Okay, what I will do, I will go back. I mean, even if you can't hear it, I think you will be able to see it, and I will do the commentary for you. So you will understood what is that I actually want to show you. I mean, you can, whenever you have time, you can always go back to this link and see the full video from beginning to end. But what I wanted to show you is that how this equation you can see into the real life. That's what I wanted to show you. But how do I stop it now? Okay. So come back here. I will again go to present window, and I think this was the window. Okay. So don't worry about the audio right now. Okay. So okay. Now are you able to see the screen that I have said, and when video plays?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I will just play it, and okay. Yeah. So when we were that earlier equation, this equation, okay, not here. So this equation, for example, okay. If you see this equation, one of that part, so intensity is made of the two part. One is the two parallel, two polarization perpendicular to each other. Okay, so one polarization has no wavelength, no angular dependence, whereas another polarization has angular dependence. So when you are combining, even though you are combining and you are writing this equation as like angular dependence, but really speaking, only the one part that has angular dependence, whereas another part has no. There are certain angles where cos square theta will be 0. When cos square theta will be 0, you will be having only I0R part. Okay, it means for those particular angles, you will be having only the polarized light. Which will be that angle? Can you tell anybody? Hello, can you hear me?
Pi by 290 degree.
Very good. So if you're looking at the scattering phenomena at a 90-degree angle, so you have let's say radiation coming from your left. Let us say there is something some molecules in front of your eyes, and then radiation is coming from the left hand side or right hand side, and then radiation is scattered toward your eye. That's like a 90-degree. Okay, that's a 90-degree scattering. That is the theta with respect to incident angle 90-degree, and that radiation will be purely 100% scatter polarized light. Okay, so in atmosphere also, if you actually measure the polarization of the light as a function of the different angles with respect to the sun, you will see that the polarization changes. Certain angles you will have only polarized light. Okay, so this equation can explain a lot of things. One thing that it can explain is the blue sky, why the sky is blue, and why there are different polarizations and so on. Okay, and this guy Walter Lewis, he's trying to show one demonstration for this. Uh, in this demonstration, if you see the lambda power 4, okay, so I is proportional to 1 upon lambda power 4. So blue light is scattered more than any other light. Okay, but when particles are bigger, this equation is no more valid. Okay, and then all the wavelengths are scattered equally, and that is why you see the sky blue, because in the case of the air molecule, scattering, blue light scattering is more, whereas you see the cloud white, because clouds are bigger particles, and for the bigger particles, this lambda power 4 dependence is not valid. Okay, and that is what this experiment shows. So let me again go back to this experiment. So what he is going to do is that he will send the light in vertical upward direction. Okay, and then he will put a smoke here. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so he will put the particle, so he will send the light vertically like upward, and he will put the particles here. When he will put a very small particles, you will see that blue light is getting scattered. But when he will put a bigger size particles, you will see that that doesn't look the blue. Sorry. Okay. So this is what I wanted you to look into these things. Could you see the smoke looks almost blue in this case?
Yes.
Okay, and we don't have polarizers, and even if we had polarizers, because we are not seeing this experiment live, if you were seeing this live and if you use the polarizer only in one particular directions, when you put polarizer we will be able to see the light. If you put polarizer that is perpendicular to the this axis, we will not be able to see the, sorry, if it is perpendicular we will not be able to see. If it is parallel to the horizontal, only we will be able to see the light coming from this smoke. Okay. Okay, so I will just little bit fast forward it. Okay, so you notice that. Hmm, okay. Okay. Okay, did you see? Okay, just now again I want you to pay attention that this looks blue. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to fast forward to just that point, but somehow it's not working. Anyway, I will just. Okay. So this is what I want to see. Now, if you see, it doesn't look the blue. Okay, earlier when he was just putting the smoke from the cigarette directly, the smoke was looking bluish. But when he taken this smoke inside his lungs and then he puff out onto this light, you see that look white. Why they look white? Because when the person has taken the smoke inside his lungs, there is a moisture inside the lungs. Okay, and this moisture get precipitate onto the particles. So these particles becomes bigger particles now, okay, than before. And when the particles are bigger, they scatter. They don't scatter like the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, they don't have this 1 upon lambda minus 4 dependence. Okay, and so they all the wavelengths are equally scattered. Okay, and that's why they look it looks white. Okay, so this is what lambda power 4 dependence. Okay, now okay, so I think you can watch the video later on, full video, but these 2 points I just wanted to show you. I mean, it's not like you have to do a very sophisticated experiments. You can see in daily life this kind of what this kind of physical phenomena. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Okay, so you have now, so you have this scattering cross section. In fact, if you have a scattering cross section, you can calculate the extinction coefficient, and if you have extinction coefficient, you can calculate the optical depth. What I want you for to do is the calculate the scattering cross section as an exercise. So let us say you can note down this equation. Let us say this equation, if you notice, there is something called NS, that is the number of molecules per centimeter cube, or number density. Okay, so I give you the value of MR, I give you the value of this NS. You can calculate alpha. Once you calculated alpha, you can calculate the sigma S for the different wavelength. And I want you to calculate scattering cross sections for the different wavelengths. And those wavelengths are 0.3, 0.5, and 0.7 micrometer wavelengths. And what you should use, can you read these numbers? 1.00028. That is the refractive index of the air. In fact, refractive index will also depend on to the wavelength, but we can take it constant for time being. Okay, 0.3 to 0.7 micrometer. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want you to use these numbers, and there are 2.55 10 to the power 19 particles per centimeter cube of air. Okay, 2.55 10 to the power 19 air molecules per centimeter cube. Okay, at sea level pressure. So you use this number, use this wavelength, and give me the answer. Okay. It should not take more than 5 minutes if you are doing with calculator. You remember the equation? I mean, you can write down these constants, and I can show you the equation back again. Okay, so these are the equation. These are the constants. These are the inputs. Once answers are ready, let me know. You can write down into the chat box, or you can tell me whichever way you prefer. Somehow I'm trying to get this.
1.74 into 10 raised to minus 14.
Which
10
wavelength?
raised to 14. Okay, so
First, tell me the wavelength. First, tell me the wavelength.
Sir, I'm doing it.
Sorry.
So 4.86 into 10 raised to minus 18 or
For which
0.3 micrometer.
0.3 micrometer, 4.86
86 into 10 raised to minus 18.
minus 1.8.
Yes.
What are the unit? Heath has given answer 4.91, 10 to the power minus 24. Again, can you tell me what is the unit of your calculations? 4.91, 10 to the power minus 24. That should have some unit. What is that unit? Unless you write the unit, I cannot tell whether it is a right answer or wrong answer, because answer will be different into different units. But as far as Heath's answer is concerned, looks to be wrong. Answer appears to be wrong. So anyway, Heath has to see it again. Anybody is doing it or not? It should not take this much time. I mean, it's simple, like fifth standard or fourth standard, they teach mathematics, how to divide. That's all it is, because you don't have to apply mind. Everything is given. Whatever you need in this, you are given. What is the value of alpha, by the way? What is the value of alpha did you get?
So alpha is
One.
1.74 into 10 raised to minus minus 24. Like 20, minus 30. 10 raised to minus 30.
To the power minus 30.
Meter cube. Sorry. meter cube.
Okay. Anyway, let me show you the answer, and then you can check whether this answer is correct or not. This is the answer I have received. My answer will be little bit different from your answer. Reason is that value of the refractive index, which I have given you, and the value of refractive index which I have used is slightly different. I have used more accurate refractive index values, but your number should be very close to this number. Even if you use the constant value of refractive index, your number should not be very different from this one. It should not be too large. The difference between these numbers and my numbers and your numbers should not be too large. How many of you have got the answer close to these numbers? At least 10 to the power minus 26 or minus 27. Anyone is getting answer close to this one? Why so much silent? Sanatan क्यों है भाई?
Sir, 2 minutes.
0.7 के लिए 5.42 मिल रहा है और 10 raised to
Don't worry about this front part. If you are getting this part correct, consider your answer as a correct answer. How many of you have got? Maybe you raise the hand or.
but sir, I'm going for different wavelength. I'm getting 5.4 to 4.7 micrometer wavelength.
I couldn't hear you properly. You are getting the answer.
5.4 to 4.7 micrometer wavelength.
10 to the power, how much?
1 minute, sir.
Sir, I am getting answer in 10 to the power minus 32 per meter square.
Per meter square. So if you convert per meter square, so 2 to the 4. So 32. So you are getting 28. Maybe I am getting wrong. I have got the wrong answer or what? Okay. Let me recheck my calculations.
So positive power again is to plus 28 hours.
Just let me recheck my calculation and then I will tell you whether I can also make a mistake because I have also not I mean it's not like readily available something.
Sir, I get this.
You
But
are getting
my answer is 4.86 into 10 raised to minus 26 meters square.
okay. Okay, I think that
No,
should
no,
be
sorry, sir. Centimeters.
anyway. If you are not getting this answer, maybe you will still try more and see. I will also again recheck it and in next lecture when we will meet, I'll try to okay. Hit Joshi has got the answer 10 to the power minus 26. So now at least I have confidence that what I saw on the slide, that's correct. Okay. What actually why I given this exercise was to show you the difference between the scattering section between 0.7 and 0.3. So you have got the 0.3, that is 10 to the power minus 26. And if you do the calculations for the 0.7, that is something close to 1.10 to the power minus 27. Okay, so there is a large difference. That comes from the lambda power 4. These things. Okay, so if you have a like blue wavelength, like close to the 0.3 or 0.4 micrometer, and if you have a red wavelength, they will be scattered differently. That's why you have sunset. Sun during the sunset, sun looks red or the sky looks red, whereas sky toward the sun looks red. But when there is a like afternoon or when you are looking in the sky just above your head, that sky looks blue. All those phenomena, lots and lots of phenomena that can be explained with this simple equation. Okay, for us, what is important is not this particular equation. Okay, for us, important is this equation. Okay, because this is a general equation of the scattering. We are not interested in just Rayleigh scattering. We are interested into putting the scattering into the radiative transfer equation. So we are doing this scattering. We are trying to understand the scattering not just for the sake of scattering, but as a sake of energy transfer. Okay. So let me Okay, one more exercise I want you to do is to do this polar diagram. Do you know what is a polar diagram? All of you understand what is a polar diagram? How many of you don't know the polar diagram? Those who can write into the comment or raise the hand. So I know that how many of you don't know the polar diagram. Okay. At least 2 hands I could see. So except for these two, either nobody is listening or everybody knows what is a polar diagram. Anyway, so like the x and y axis plots. Okay, on the x axis you have some value. Let us say you have time, and on y axis you have some other parameter. Let us say magnitude of the waves or something else. Or on x axis you can have voltage, and y axis you can have current, and so on. Okay, so that's like a normal diagram. In case of polar diagram, particularly when you have parameter that is like a wavelength dependent. Okay, so what you do is that you have you have the x and y axis, so you take a center, and distance from the center crossing of these two axes will be proportional to the say intensity or some value, and angle will be like in traditional sense whatever the angle. Okay, so if you go to that equation, if you look at this equation, for example, okay, not this one. I am
Sir, your voice is cracking.
pardon. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sir, your voice is clear.
My voice is cracking. Okay, can you hear me now, or should I reconnect?
Sir, your voice is clear now.
Okay. So I'm trying to explain what is the polar diagram. Okay, so normal diagram where you have x-axis and you have y-axis. On the x-axis, some properties. Let us say you can have like a length. On y-axis, you can have velocity or acceleration or something like that. But when you have equation, that depends on to the angle. Okay. So for example, I want you to plot this equation. I want you to plot I. Okay. So what you do in polar diagram, your distance from the origin is proportional to the magnitude of I. Okay. And theta is the angle that you vary. Okay. So like in trigonometry, you do the change in theta. So angle you take as an angle, you are using these things, or instead of these things you can take cos square theta, whatever the angular dependence terms. Better you take theta, so you have a more realistic idea of how the scattering will be distributed as a function of. Okay, again my voice is cracking, it seems.
Sir, I can hear you clearly, sir.
You are hearing
No, sir,
clearly.
your voice
Okay.
is audible, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay. Uh, okay. So I think Heath is not able to hear it, but I think if you do a polar diagram, or you can actually search something called a Nightingale diagram. Florence Nightingale was a nurse, and she actually devised this method when you have some periodic data. Let us say if you had some data that is, like say, seasonal variations, January, February, March, and you have many years of data, you have this issue. Okay, after December, again you have go back to the first point onto the x-axis if you are just plotting as an xy diagram. But you can, instead of, what you can do is that you can put the month as an angle onto diagram. So in this case, your angle is angle. Here you don't have to do a transformation. Your angle is just a angle. In other plots, you use the x-axis as an angle. So instead of using x-axis as an angle, you can use the angle as an angle and distance from the origin as an I. Okay, and you plot that diagram. So that is called polar diagram. And I think if you are not able to hear me, you can probably do a Wikipedia article. You can read for Wikipedia article or do Google search. There are a lot of it's something like a very simple thing, but I think you should know it. Anyway, so I want you to do this plotting of I. Okay, that is an exercise for you. Okay, so let us move on. Okay. So I hope my voice is not cracking. Okay. So now we started with like scattering phenomena, how the scattering phenomena happens. Then we derived the scattering for the like air molecules versus visible wavelength. Okay, and then we come upon a equation that required spatial function for the angular distribution or angular dependence, to describe the angular dependence, and we defined this function as a phase functions. When we integrate the phase functions, its value should be 4 pi. The phase function divided by 4 pi equal to 1. That is how we kind of define the phase function. Okay. Now, why Rayleigh scattering? Why should we worry about the Rayleigh scattering? So let me try to. I wish I had some way of drawing it. These things. Okay. Just I'm trying to tell you why Rayleigh scattering is not always valid. Why? What was the assumptions in the Rayleigh scattering, and why it is not valid in all the places? Okay. So let me go back to these things. Stop presenting. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm just trying to do something. Okay. Sorry, it is taking time. Okay. Okay. You should be able to see the black screen now. Okay. Are you able to see the black screen? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we did into case of the Rayleigh scattering was this one. So we had this like small particle. Sorry, I will change the. So we had a small particle like this, okay, and then we have a electric field. Okay, so we had an electric field in like this. Okay. Sorry, my drawing is not the way it should be. Okay, and because of that, there was a positive and there was a negative dipole moment induced into this particle. Okay, because the electron were pushed downward, so there was a net positive charge upward and net negative charge downward. So this is so why we could write this equation. Why I could draw this equation? This is because if I have a wavelength, so let us say my radiation is a wavelength like this. Okay, and if my particle is very small like this, okay, and for this particle all the fields are so if my wave is like this and my particle is like this, all the vectors I can draw in vertical directions. But suppose my particle is like this, okay, and my wave is like this. Okay, so in this part of the particle, I have downward downward electric field. In this part of the particle, I have upward electric. Okay, so in this part, sorry, not okay. In this part, I have downward electric field. In this part, I have upward electric field. Okay, so if my particle size is very large compared to the wavelength, I can have multiple dipoles. So in this part of the particle here, I have a one dipole moment that is downward pointing. I have in this part another electric dipole moment that is upward pointing. In this part, third one, and so on. So what will happen? The electric field that you will get, it will be not like neatly. If you remember, in this case, we can very neatly describe perpendicular and parallel component and the field that was like a distance r from this dipole. Okay, but in this case, the electric field that you will have will be combination of all these dipole that are getting induced into this particle, in addition to the electric field of the incident radiation itself. Okay, so this simplification that we used into the Rayleigh, we cannot use anymore into the situation when your wavelength is very when the particle is much larger than the your wavelength. Okay, and that property is described by something called size parameter, and size parameter is 2 pi radius divided by lambda. So what is 2 pi radius? It is a circumference of the particle, and lambda is a wavelength of the particle. So if you have circumference of the particle and wavelength of comparable size or less, so this is less than or equal to 1, okay, or much less than 1, you have the Rayleigh scattering. But if you have this 2 pi r is in circumference of the particle, not the r distance, but r is in radius of the particle. I should use some different symbols. We run out of the symbol very fast. If greater than very greater than 1, then you can use Mie scattering. Not very greater than, I will say greater than 1. Okay, if you have 2 pi r upon lambda, that is very greater than 1. In this case, you can use the geometric optics, and that I think you have learned, for example, fringe formation and all those various interference phenomena and all those things that you use in these circumstances. Basically, they are like a special case of, so Rayleigh scattering is a special case of Mie scattering, where your particle size is smaller than the lambda, whereas this is like Fresnel refractions and interference by the slits and all those things are a special case of the Mie scattering when your particle size is much larger than the wavelength. So in between region that we use, we call it Mie scattering, but Mie scattering is actually all of that. Mie scattering is very general theory of scattering. Okay. Now let me go back to the presentation again. Okay. Okay, so in case of the relay, we could get the phase function which was like this, okay, which appeared like this. But where cos theta also we can calculate. What is the theta? Theta is an angle with scattering, and we can calculate in terms of the general coordinates, that is mu and mu. So cos of mu is like like theta is, you think the theta in 3 dimensions, then anyway it will make sense. But let's not worry about this equation. What point I want to make is that you had a very analytically derived equation of the phase function for the Rayleigh scattering, but that is not always possible, particularly when particle size is large, or when the particle size is not spherical. So in those circumstances, what we use is some special kind of functions known as Legendre polynomials. Okay, and this function will be sum of all those terms. And I have given some example here. Okay, in this example, so let us say you have so AL are the different terms. Okay, so let us say L equal to 0. Okay, then AL equal to 1. Now L equal to 1. Then A1 is given by A1 by 3. We describe by G 1/2. So basically this term. Okay. Now let us not worry about this part. But what I want to say is that if you have a kind of an, so what does it describe? Okay. So let us say what is the first term? So first term describes the total kind of an symmetry. Okay. Then this is the forward versus backward symmetry, and then so on. So those factors goes on adding. You will, when you will be like doing the radiative transfer calculations for say climate change. So you are, let's say you want to do a radiative transfer calculations for the aerosol. Okay, and then you will come across a term called asymmetry parameter, and that asymmetry parameter is generally described by a symbol G. Okay. So what is this asymmetry parameter? So asymmetry parameter tells you ratio of forward versus backward scattering. Okay, how much fraction radiation is scattered in forward direction divided by the fraction of the radiation scattered into the backward direction. Okay, so that is called asymmetry parameter. So what I want to show you, I mean, I don't want to bog down by these complex equations, but if you want to read, you can actually read into the book or online resources that what is the Legendre polynomials and how we use it. But ultimately, I want you to remember where this term G comes from. Okay, how this G comes from and what does it mean physically. So physically mean it is a ratio of forward scattering divided by backward scattering. And using this G, so G is like just a second term into this. So if you look L equal 0 to N, so L equal to 0 to 1, that will contain 2 terms, and that will be like a 0, 1 and G. Okay. So if you have this these things, so let us say somehow you knew you have found out the phase functions and you are doing the calculations. What will be the effect? Okay. So if you, I have given you an exercise to do a polar chart. Okay, polar diagram for the intensity I. If you, when you will do this intensity plot, the plot will look like this. Okay, but when we'll put the mean scattering equations, new equations, and the particle size, that is this ratio with respect to wavelength will be large. There will be more and more forward scattering compared to the backward scattering. In this case, if you see, fraction of the radiation that is scattered in right hand side and fraction of the radiation that is scattered into the backward side or left hand side is same. In this case, fraction of the radiation in forward direction or in the right hand side is much larger than the fraction that is into backward directions. And if the particles is still large, then you will have much larger forward directions. And that is the reason if you are like, I don't know how many of you might be driving into the night, okay, and then you will notice, particularly when the road has a lot of pollution, air is a lot of pollution, you will notice that rays like comes like in needles. The needle-like appearance of this rays, that is because these particles, these dust particles, are much larger than the light wavelength of your headlamp of the car, opposing car, and because of that, there is a lot of forward direction scattering. Okay, in very narrow angle, scattering happening in very narrow angle, and that gives this appearance to them. Okay. Now, always that is not possible to get the phase function. So many times we use what is called approximate solutions. Okay, to find out the phase function. So there is one approximate or one parameterization is called Hennia-Greenstein phase function. So if you know the G, so G doesn't describe the full distribution. Okay, you don't have the distribution in every angle. When this G is described, you don't really know what is the distribution in every angle. Okay, all you know is that what is forward and what is backward. Okay, what is the ratio? If you draw a vertical line from this point, how much amount is in right hand side and how much amount is in left hand side? That is all you know about G. But once you know G, and from mean theory, you know that this function can provide you at many various angles. That is that is quite close to the real phase function. Okay, so Hennia-Greenstein phase function is not a real phase function; it's an empirical formula. Like you know, you have data points and then you feed the polynomial. Okay, so similarly, this is a kind of a phase function that describe the real life situation, but it's not real life phase function. Okay, but very widely used phase function. So once you have a G, you can calculate the distribution of the radiation in different angles using this phase function. Okay. Okay, I think it's now time to end, and then next lecture we will see how to use the radiative how to use the scattering into the radiative transfer equation. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Hello. Hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we will end the lecture here. And if you have some questions, you can please tell me now, or you can write it down and bring it to the next lecture. Or if you have a question from the previous lectures and you want to ask something now.
Looks like, sir, they currently don't have any question. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
So
then I will leave these things. You can always welcome to send me your questions by email, or you can always write down and come to the next lecture.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Thank you then. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Goodbye, sir.